Webinar has started. All right,
Go.
let's wait for everybody to pop in. We got a ton of people in the waiting room. We'll let everybody get in here. Hope everyone's having a great Tuesday afternoon or morning, depending on where you are located. So I am in Arizona. So the three of us are in different time zones. I'm in Arizona on Mountain Standard Time. Josh is in Zanesville, Ohio, where our home office is, and he is in Eastern Time Zone. And Eli's coming on from us from Nashville, home of the 2021 NFDA conference, and is in the Central Time Zone. So 3 time zones represented by our team. And then I know we've got people all over the freaking globe when it comes to attendees and watching. So I'm really excited about today's webinar. When we think about marketing internally as Disrupt, the relationship in how we market with the relationship of the consumer in focus is pretty powerful. And I think from a transparency standpoint around what makes us different in our philosophies of how we approach marketing with a funeral home or cemetery, or even any, of our vendor clients from a social media perspective, this will give you a peek into our process and why we do what we do, and then why content in terms of organic content that builds a relationship matters so much. Like that is the key differentiator in whether or not a funeral home or cemetery will have success with social media. It comes down to the content that's created and then the strategy of leveraging the relationship that's created with the right content. So we're going to pop through that today. Man, I'm excited about it. So we aren't going to delay anymore. It looks like the waiting room is emptied. Some housekeeping things. This is being recorded. So if for some reason you need to pop off, you will get the recording. I will say you'll get more value if you stick on this puppy and watch it all the way through and actually engage. And what I mean by that is we've blocked off a lot of time for this. So we are not under time constraints. We're not in a hurry. If you've got questions, please ask your questions through either the chat or raise your hand or the Q&A. Josh and Eli will both be monitoring the chat along with the hand raise, the Q&A, all of the things. So if you've got questions, please put them out here so that we can answer them. The last thing that I want is for you to be on this call and be in this webinar and not get something valuable because you didn't ask the right question. You've got the ability to make sure that you get as much value out of this as you possibly can. If you just listen, you're going to have value, but I want you to be able to engage and ask a question, and we're going to stay on as long as we need to answer all the questions. So this needs to be interactive and a two-way street. And go ahead right now and throw in the chat where you are watching from. It's always great for us to go back and kind of look at the recording and see where everybody's coming from. So Central Louisiana, what's up, Gretchen? Thanks for being here. Hey, Annie, hope you're doing well. Good to see you. All right, man, we got all kinds of time zones. Central, Eastern, Mountain Time. Awesome. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we will get this sucker rolling. All right, how's that look for you guys, Eli? Look good?
Looking crisp, I would say. Looking very crisp.
Cool. Okay, so relationship marketing, man. We believe in relationship marketing. At the crux of what we do, relationship marketing is it, because the funeral business is so relationship driven in terms of families that you're serving, that the relationship has got to be a core focus. And we'll go through some data around that and why the relationship is so valuable. But what you're going to hear, some takeaways. What are you going to learn? What is relationship marketing? Because this is a term that isn't used very much in this profession, and we're really kind of defining it in the death care space. Why will it benefit you personally and your funeral home or cemetery? How do you market with relationship at the forefront? why being different and standing out is vital for continued relationships. And then we're going to give you some real examples of what relationship marketing looks like from a content perspective and from a generating more business and revenue perspective as well. If I had to say that the one thing that we do well as a marketing agency is we are proficient in the formula of how to create content that develops a relationship through interaction. And then with that relationship, how to leverage it for more call volume, whether that be at need or pre-need. But the first thing that we need to do is really define what is relationship marketing. So it's marketing based on building and growing connections inside your community by showing personality and creating recognition. So think about this. When you think about a relationship, whether it's a relationship, romantic relationship, a friendship-based relationship, or just the relationship you have with the brands and companies that you engage with on social media, relationships show personality. The more that you know about somebody, the deeper the connection, the deeper relationship. And we're going to look at this from a dating perspective, because I think it's really easy to wrap your head around relationships when you're thinking about dating. So, you know, in a relationship setting, a dating setting, you go to dinner, typically your first couple dates are spent in conversation, right? You're telling stories, you're asking questions, you're learning about that person. It's no different in a marketing scenario to build a relationship. You've got to be able to connect at a deeper level. The more somebody knows about your brand, the deeper connection they're going to have, the more trust and transparency, the deeper the relationship, the deeper the loyalty. Funeral homes are serving family once every 15 years. So that's a long time to have to keep awareness up with that consumer relationship. If there's deep connection and relationship there through content engagement, you're going to be able to stay loyal. That family's going to be able to stay loyal with the brand. Some quick stats on relationships in the death care space. 80%, this is according to NFDA's consumer survey, 80% of funeral home business is relationship driven, meaning that 80% of the business that you currently have is because of pre-existing relationships. Either you've served that family before in the past, that family's got a connection with somebody on your team or you personally, they go to your church. There's some sort of pre-existing connection there with 80% of the families that you're serving. So think about this in the perspective of what you're doing through marketing, what you're doing through organic content via social media is amplifying those pre-existing relationships and then using content to create new relationships through connection and engagement. 90.4% of consumers shop 0 to 1 funeral home when making arrangements. And then the top reasons that families chose a funeral home that they did, again, and this is according to NFDA's consumer survey, was proximity to the location and then the relationship that that family had with the funeral home. So the top 2 reasons somebody chooses your firm is how close they live to it and then the relationship that they have with you. Again, that's the bulk of your business. If we're not focusing on the relationship, then we're really missing the mark of what brings a family into your funeral home. So think of it this way. Well, I won't say that. We're going to hit on it here in a second. So if we're looking at relationship marketing, relationships have to be at the forefront. That has to be what's top of mind. So why will relationship marketing benefit you and your firm? Let's go there. So relationship marketing in a nutshell is this. Awareness is the top of the funnel. This is where everybody's coming into the engagement. This is the first time engagement. We have a pre-existing relationship already, but this is the first time we've engaged online. You have the awareness. Then you have the activation. The activation is the engagement. This is the content. This is them liking, sharing, commenting, clicking on an image, watching a video, going back to your website. Any action that the consumer takes with a piece of content, leaving a reaction, leaving a comment, clicking the share button, clicking an image, watching a video, going back to your website. Again, any action that is taken around that piece of content is engagement, which is the activation. Once we activate that consumer, they're now in the funnel. And we won't get real crazy on Facebook algorithm and what happens. But I'll give you this: when somebody is activated, when somebody is engaging with your content, there's higher probability that they will see more of your content in their newsfeed. It's how you can guarantee they're going to have a higher probability of seeing your content without having to pay Facebook more money. So we're going to show you some real examples of organic content and how that grows engagement versus, how do I want to word this? Versus 99% of you that are paying your pre-need company, paying your grief therapists that are on retention, paying some random other company a fee to get generic content, which would be like things that, they're sending the same post to 30 different funeral homes. Generic content's not building a relationship because it's not specific to who you are. So it doesn't activate the consumer. Where organic content is specific for your firm and only your firm, can't be duplicated by somebody else because it's specific to who you are and your people. That engagement, that's the activation. So awareness, then we get them to engage with content and they're activated. And then that's how we push them down the funnel to the purchase standpoint. Once they purchase, that's at need or pre-need. There's action taken. There's a money exchange. That's the transaction point. Then we're creating loyalty with more content. So we keep them in the funnel and the cycle just stays moving. So once the consumer gets to that loyalty standpoint, on average, it's 15 years before they're back to the purchase, unless they're purchasing memorial jewelry after the fact. They're going to pre-plan for other family members or themselves. So we can get them back to that purchase point faster. And also there's the potential for at need in that cycle as well. But awareness, the activation keeps them in the funnel and works them down to the purchase point when we use targeted Facebook ads to move them down to that purchase point. So that's really relationship marketing in a nutshell. Building relationships online isn't a whole lot different than building relationships in real life. Think of an interaction or that activation as the handshake that's happening in real life, but it's happening virtually. And man, I think that we have learned that in the last 20 months, that the potential to build online relationships that are valuable, that produce tangible results is 100% possible. I think in death care up to this point, there's been questions on that. There's been questions about, is a relationship online possible? And is a relationship online able to be amplified to a transaction? And we 100% have learned that is a possibility. It happens, it's real, and there's a process for it. So building relationships is a lot like what we see in online. So again, I'm going to use some dating terminology and looking at that relationship because I think it's an easy relationship picture for us to all relate to. So, if you think of single people ideally venture and use platforms, services, and venues where other single people are, right? Like if you're single and you need to go meet somebody that's single, you're probably not going to go to a marriage seminar. You're going to go to a bar. You're going to go to a singles event. You're going to go somewhere where other single people are hanging out. So for your funeral home to build relationships, you've got to be where your consumer is at. And right now, the average US adult spends over 34 minutes a day on Facebook. If we're looking at your specific, most profitable consumer that's over the age of 45, 75% of consumers in the United States over the age of 45 are daily active users on Facebook, meaning they're spending 34 minutes or more time per day engaging on the platform. And the amount of competition that you have in terms of reaching them as a funeral home is drastically low. So your ability to create awareness, your ability to be in front of them and create value is huge. So you absolutely need to be on the platform where your consumers hang out. And one of the questions I get asked all the time is, Ryan, why do you talk so much about Facebook and not Instagram or not TikTok? Are those networks not valuable? No, absolutely. Those networks are valuable, but it depends on what the goal is. If you're trying to get awareness and you're trying to build deeper relationships and have that pay off in the most possible fastest way and spend the least amount of money, Facebook is where you need to be, because that's where the bulk of your audience is hanging out. 75% of those consumers that are most profitable for you are there 34 minutes a day. The upside is huge. Does that mean you should not be on Instagram? No, not at all. We've got plenty of clients where we're managing an Instagram strategy for them as well, but the strategy is different on Instagram. There's not that payoff in terms of pushing that user down the funnel, because that demographic that we're reaching on Facebook that's engaging with a funeral home skews a lot younger, and they're not necessarily at that purchase point like somebody that's over the age of 45. Pre-planned conversation is very relevant with a 55-year-old. It's not so relevant with a 25-year-old. So, the demographic skews younger. And then if you go to TikTok, is the ability to build awareness on TikTok there 1000%. The virability possibilities for a funeral home on TikTok are massive. But again, what are you willing to spend your time and what are you willing to pay for? The reason we double down on Facebook is because the return is amplified and a lot faster on Facebook, because the demographic that we're reaching is your core audience. It skews younger elsewhere.
Something else that I want to throw in there is even just the scale. Obviously, right now, TikTok is the quote unquote hot thing, and it definitely is. But today, TikTok just passed 1 billion active users, which is huge. That's awesome. That means, to me, that shows that they're here to stay. Facebook has almost 3 times that many people.
That's right.
So
They have over 1.2 billion people on the platform every single day, let alone total.
Right. So even though we're hearing a lot of people talking about TikTok, and it's awesome. I always say I would love to see a funeral home on there crushing it. Still the big dog is still Facebook.
That's right. Good point. Good point. So the Peacock Method. This is spreading the colors, finning the flames, or what is it when a peacock does its feathers go out and you're kind of boastful. You're walking like a rooster, right? You've got to get attention from those you want to meet. So again, in a dating perspective, you got to go where there's some like-minded people hanging out that are similar to you, that you would see as a potential mate. It's not really any different than in a social media landscape. You've got to get attention. You need eyeballs. You got to get dressed up. You got to put lipstick on. You got to do your hair. You have to look good. And so you need the attention. You need the eyeballs. Facebook is not the field of dreams. Just because your funeral home has a Facebook page, that just isn't enough. You've got to invest in paid media and create content that is shareable. Man, so what does this mean? This answers the question of, whenever we talk about paid media, the immediate thing that we hear is, well, I thought Facebook was free. Yes, Facebook is 1000% free. It is free. You don't ever have to put a single dollar in the platform to use the platform. However, from a marketing perspective, just because you've got a Facebook page doesn't mean that magically people are going to show up to it. The paid media is where we're able to go, okay, Facebook, we created this really great post that we know is super relevant for people over the age of 55. And this is what's going to be valuable in terms of them engaging with our funeral home. One, that content's got to be fantastic. You got to hit a home run with that content every single time to get the attention that you need. But then from a paid perspective, this is where we go, okay, Facebook, we want to show this post to anybody that lives within a 10-mile radius of our location, over the age of 55, likes other things on Facebook related to. And we've got a ton of different targeting metrics that we know if we target that consumer with those interests, it puts them at an end of life, the potential to be in an end of life discussion for either themselves or a loved one. There's higher probability there. And there's a lot of data that we pay for. There's a lot of data that we've captured over the last 11 years of doing this proficiently, that we know how to reach that consumer for a fraction of the cost. So if we look at, the attention that can be grabbed from Facebook, and we're going to show you some data on a recent campaign that we ran this summer for one of our clients. But if we look at exposure, just exposure, the average cost to reach 1,000 people Through the newspaper, national average to reach 1,000 people is around $58. Radio, it's around $7. Cable television to reach 1,000 people is around $8. Direct mail is around $57 to reach 1,000 people. The average cost to reach 1,000 people through Facebook is around $3.25. And those 1,000 people can be extremely, extremely targeted, meaning we can say Facebook, okay, we want to show this ad to anybody or this piece of content to anybody that's been, in and out of this hospice facility in the last 30 days. So family members coming in and out of hospice can see valuable content that would be relevant to them in their situation from your funeral home through the targeting that we're able to do. So you've got to invest in paid, and you've got to invest in content that is shareable, that is organic, that is valuable, that the consumer wants to take action with. If you just put money behind every single obituary and put it on Facebook, no, that's not going to produce value for you. But if you put money behind a video of one of your funeral directors talking about how they love serving and why they became a funeral director, and they've got a great story, that's going to be valuable. That's going to give me connection. That's going to show me a glimpse into the heart of that professional that creates a relationship. There's value in that. If we are creating content around the value of pre-planning, and we're showing that content to people that have a pre-existing engagement relationship, there's value there. So create content that's valuable. All right, now you got to introduce yourself. You got to create the conversation. So when you get the attention, we want to get that. We've talked about awareness. You got to go where they're at. We've talked about the kind of attention, and you need to get the eyeballs and the exposure. Now we need to get that activation. We need to get them to understand who we are, to engage with that content. So you need to introduce yourself. You need to get the action. You need to produce content to express yourself. Don't just show your logo or a building every single post. Show faces, show personality, show what you do, and explain what you do. Does this mean you live stream an embalming? No, I'm not saying that you live stream embalming when I'm talking about what you do. There's so many other aspects of being a funeral director and serving that are valuable to the consumer, that show a heart of who you are and why you do what you do. Let's peel back that onion. Let's go a little bit deeper. And this is part of our process with our clients, is really getting down to a granular level. Why should a family drive by 3 other funeral homes to get to your funeral home? How do we get to that point and create content around those things that are your differentiator? I mean, this entire presentation is about why we're different. We're peeling back the onion, showing you and giving you a lot of transparency around our philosophy and the content that we create for our clients to show you how we're different. And when I say we're different, there's
we use purple in a slide deck.
Yeah, there we go. We use purple on a slide deck. Look, if you want to understand why it's valuable, the content we're putting out, if I could show you who registered for this event, every single one of our competitors have multiple people in their company that are watching this event, this webinar right now, that are going to literally regurgitate what I say back to thousands of funeral homes across the United States and sell our language and never deliver on what they sell. So that is why we are different, because this is the heart of who we are and what we do. And this is where the intention goes when we're creating content. The intention is going and building the relationship so we can leverage that long-term to be able to provide value to the funeral home and the funeral home to increase call volume. That's the reason that you're spending marketing dollars, is to get more business, right? Let's do it in a smart way. So number 4, it's where you close the deal. You got to get the engagement. You got to get to the purchase point. So we want to use the relationship to get to the transaction. You got to crap or get off the pot. You got to continue to learn about each other until you get married, you die, or you break up, right? That's kind of like, if you think about a relationship, there's really 3 things that are going to happen in a relationship. You're either going to get married, you're going to go your separate ways. It's not going to work out. You're not the right one. We learned that. Or one of you dies and the relationship is over because there was a death. So good relationship and marketing involves interacting with the audience. It's a 2-way street. Think of it as push and pull. So traditional marketing is more of a push message. The consumer is not signing up to see your billboard block the beautiful landscape. You're pushing a message on them where they're not asking for it. Social Nobody is making them come to your Facebook page. No one is making them engage with your content, comment on a post, click a like button, watch a video. They're voluntarily doing that, and there's value in that. You're pulling them in with great content. So a good relationship marketing involves interacting with the audience. It's a conversation. It's a two-way street. Respond to comments, ask questions. We'll give you some examples of this later, but one of the things that we do for our clients is we engage in that real-time conversation. If there's a question asked, our average response time is less than 15 minutes across the board. That's insanely valuable. The consumer expects a response in 24 hours. Most funeral homes, if they respond, it's at least 8 days after the comment is made that they're going to respond. 4 to 8 days. Come on. Like, that's crazy. You're missing the boat. In the last 6 months, the amount of first calls that we've taken through Facebook Messenger is insane. It would blow your mind if we showed you all the conversations we were having that started with, "Mom just died. What do we do?" That's where the consumer's comfortable. They're already on the platform.
I'll say from the dating perspective, if I'm talking to a girl and she sends me a message and I don't respond for 4 to 6 days, it's over at that point. She has decided I'm ghosting her, and she doesn't really care to hear from me on day 7,
That's exactly right. So listening and being open is the best way to grow. You got to have the conversation. Think about a relationship where no one ever responds. You got to respond.
All right. So before we move on here, next slide, we do have a question. And this really shows about one of the highlights of Disrupt Media that is available to our clients and what we provide. So we had a question here asking, so you're the one that answers, or do the questions or forms get pushed to the funeral home or funeral director?
Both.
Going the minor.
We are the ones who answer on behalf of the funeral home. If it's a question that we don't know the answer to, or it's a personal message for somebody at the funeral home, we have a process to get the funeral home involved to either give us a reply to make on behalf of the funeral home, or personally they'll go and reply. So yes, the funeral home is aware those messages get pushed to the funeral home, but we're also the ones that are responding and keeping the conversation going. And then we determine, is it a personal message that they need to get back from the owner or somebody at the firm because they mentioned them directly, and we'll show you an example of this, or can we reply back as the funeral home and answer that question? So the answer is yes, we're the ones that answer, but it's a partnership with the funeral home. Funeral home's involved in the conversation. All right, so we talked about the relationship. Now we got to build loyalty that's going to create the KLT factor, which is the know, the like, and the trust. They got to know you, they got to like you and resonate with you, and then they got to trust you to get to that purchase point. This is the scouting report and things to keep in mind. All right, so we believe in organic marketing. This is a huge differentiator between us and everybody else that's a competitor of ours that's watching this presentation. We believe in organic marketing, meaning creating content that's natural. It's specific to who you are. It's specific to your firm. Do we do some grief and inspirational things that make sense? Yes. Is that all that we do? Absolutely not. The 80% of the content that we're creating is organic and specific to your funeral home because that's where the relationship is. It's the hard content. It's the content that takes more time. It's the content that, we have a team of 27 people that are creating content. It takes a lot of time and hours to create real valuable content specific to over 200 plus funeral homes that we work with. So relationships take work, time, effort, and sometimes they just don't pan out. It's true. Sometimes the relationships don't pan out, but we got to create content that grows organically, meaning that the consumer is connecting in a real way. Again, we're going to show you some organic content versus generic content, and you can make up your mind for yourself. You can look at the content and go, I would engage with the organic one over the generic, or maybe say, I prefer just grief and inspirational Bible quotes. Those are my favorite. Maybe, but I highly doubt it. And we've got the data to prove that the consumer thinks that that's crap and they don't really find it valuable. So the heart of organic marketing is the organic relationships, which means, and this is a mindset shift. This is a mindset shift that we work through with our clients. The relationship has to come before business. That is so key. Think of this in traditional marketing versus relationship marketing. Traditional marketing is about sales and the transaction. It's transactional. It's information to get you to buy something. That's traditional marketing. Relationship marketing is putting the relationship first, that builds cultivating a long-term relationship, which is exactly what a funeral home needs, because you're, again, serving a family once every 15 years. I'm going to say that's a long-term relationship. Most of us, if we've had a relationship with somebody for 15 years, we consider that pretty long-term. Me and my wife just celebrated our 16th wedding anniversary. That's a long relationship. There's a lot in 16 years. So to keep that relationship, we got to put the relationship before anything else in the relationship. So if we're building relationships with the consumer has to come first, and what engages them has to come first before we try to sell. Here's the biggest mistake that most funeral homes make. The pre-need company comes to them and says, hey, we've added a social media component. We can manage your social media and we're going to drive leads. And they're like, yippee-ki-yay. And it's a bunch of grief and inspirational posts and then a ton of pre-need. Download this pre-need guide, pre-need this, lunch and learn event, pre-need, lunch and learn event, obit, generic post, pre-need. And the cycle repeats itself, and it's just a hard selling message. It's no different than direct mail. The reason that it doesn't pan out and work is because you've completely ignored the relationship, which is the valuable piece. That's 80% of your business is from relationships. Use content to build the relationships, no hard selling, AKA the stereotypes people think when they think of a funeral home. The reason people have preconceived ideas that they do of the funeral home is because that's how funeral homes market. Need to pre-plan, need to pre-plan, need to pre-plan, you need to pre-plan. If we can build the relationship first and have this funnel of people that are engaging, that have visited your website, that you've touched multiple times through likes, comments, shares, and great content, then we show them a pre-need post. Now we have value. We spend a heck of a lot less to do it, and we have a much higher return. We have an 18 times return per dollar spent on average inside the Facebook platform. There is not another company in this profession, I promise you, that can deliver on results like that and have the data. Everybody can say it. We're going to show it to you in some case studies. And if you want deeper case studies, then let's hang out and let's walk you through offline screen share of a couple case studies that really get nitty gritty that we've shown in past webinars. So relationship marketing, focus on cultivating long-term relationship. You're putting the lifetime relationships with your audience, the community, prospects, and customers before driving leads, before getting business. The relationship comes first. There's courting and hand holding, then we try to close. All right, so here's some real examples. Both of these posts are very similar in the message. Both of them are about answering questions and connecting with the consumer, and that we're here for you. They both have the same theme. The one on the left is organic. The one on the right is generic. What makes them generic? This post could literally be copied and put on any single funeral home post in the United States, and it would make sense. It would be relevant. It's very generic. It makes sense for a funeral home or cemetery to post. The one on the left is organic because it can only be used at that funeral home, because old Brandon here doesn't work at any other funeral home because he owns his own funeral home. So we can't put Brandon in a post for your funeral home, and this post makes sense because it's not specific to your firm and it's not specific to who you are. And when we show real people, when we show real human beings that actually live in the community, work in the community, the community knows, it seeds the relationship deeper, and there's going to be far more engagement on it. Look at the organic post, got 108 likes, 2 comments, 7 people even shared it. Like, that's like the holy grail. We don't just share crap to share crap anymore. Like, there's a process of what we go through. It's a built-in recommendation when somebody shares a post. Look at the generic post, 2 likes, 1 comment. Which would you rather have? Everybody else that does marketing and death care giving you the generic post, or Disrupt, who's going to focus on the organic content? Which post would you rather, as a consumer, engage with? All right, another example, not yet. Create content that creates relationships. This is a big one. We get confused. We think that the number of followers or likes that we have on a page determines value, determines success. No. We can have success if you've got one person that likes your face. Hell, we can give you success if you've got 0 people that like your Facebook page. Really doesn't matter. It's going to be in how we target people, the content that we create, and the engagement that they have. So the number of followers you have is not as significant as the number of engaged users or followers. So if your competitor has 1,000 followers and you have 100 followers, and you get engagement from 97 of those 100, that's far more valuable than your competitor getting engagement from 10 people out of 1,000. It's about the engagement from the followers and less about the number of followers. To create engagement, you need to know what motivates your audience. So you need to know them better. You need to know who they are, what they need, and what their needs are and their unmet needs. What are they not getting that they need to get from a funeral home? What are their pain points? What are they struggling with? We have so much data on the consumer that engages with a funeral home. We engage 7 million consumers a month over the age of 55. We know where they spend the bulk of their time. We know the bulk of the engagement that they have with brands outside of funeral homes. So how do we incorporate the content they're already engaging with mainstream into what a funeral home or cemetery does to provide value and build a relationship? And then how might that improve their lives? People are searching. People are hurting. They want to connect with you in a real way. Creating organic content that addresses their needs does that. And then these insights help you create valuable content. And more importantly, they build trust. We want to trust people. Remember, they need to know, they need to like, and they need to trust you before they're going to buy from you. That's simple human purchasing behavior. Know, like, and trust. You got to create content that's valuable that builds that relationship. And then you got to focus on giving value and share all that you know. Give to your audience without asking for anything in return. The idea is that you're going to be giving more than you're going to get. Give them value. If you get them as a pre-need lead or an at-need call because of that value, give them more than you're even getting for that call. There's so much value in the giving. And that's why we do webinars like this. Look, we're giving you the playbook. When I tell you that we've got every single competitor in this profession on this webinar watching and regurgitating, I'm 100% truthful in that. And that's okay, because you can only imitate so long before the truth is going to rise to the top. Like if it's not at the core of who you are and what you believe and how you do things, and it's your methodology, it's only going to be surface driven. So we're giving you so much value. If you want the blueprint of how to market for a funeral home, here it is. But we're comfortable in our ability to do it better than anybody else. So we're giving more than we are getting in return. So when you do it right, when you create content that gets you awareness and gets you known, and you activate the consumer through engagement, and you get them to the purchase point using paid campaigns, people will begin to market for you. So here's the beautiful thing that I love about Facebook reviews and recommendations is if you send somebody to Google, when we talk about Google reviews all the time, everybody wants great, positive 5-star reviews on Google. And there's companies out there that will follow up with every family you serve with a survey. They'll get them to Google. Here's why I believe that a Facebook review and recommendation is more valuable than a Google review or recommendation. When somebody leaves you a 5-star review on Google, you know who sees it? You're getting a notification that somebody left you a 5-star review. When somebody leaves you a review on Facebook, you know who sees it? A huge percentage of the people that also follow them. There's virability attached to it. So when someone talks about how amazing you are, there's a percentage of the people that they're friends with on Facebook that are also seeing that Ryan recommended Miller Funeral Home. That's massive. That's built-in recommendations. Now somebody else is spreading the good news for you. Think about this in Bible's terms. Jesus was the best social media marketer that ever walked the face of the planet. He created 12 advocates that did nothing but spread his message to millions and millions of people. That's all that you're doing here. You're doing something good. You're being known. You're being liked. You're being trusted. Someone's buying from you. And then now they're sharing the good news with everybody else. You can turn people into social media advocates. It is very clear a funeral director is making an impact in somebody's life. I'm not going to read this whole thing for you, but it talks about the power. I mean, she even mentions the name of the funeral director that helped with the arrangements and how this was my family's first time losing someone close. John was extremely patient, understanding, empathetic, kind, and helpful. These are all definitions of what a funeral director does, but they are opposites of the stereotypes that consumers already have preconceived ideas about. We can break down walls of stereotypical ideas through creating the right content that builds a relationship, gets you known, gets you liked, gets you trusted. Now we got them to the purchase standpoint. Now we build loyalty. This is loyalty. This is them sharing the good news for you. There's huge value in that. So, man, we're moving quick. We got, again, questions. Throw questions in the chat. Throw questions in the Q&A. Eli and Josh are monitoring it. If you got a comment, throw it in there too. If you think I'm an idiot, throw that in there too. I enjoy reading those. I'm happy to respond later and have a dialogue with why I'm an idiot. So, how to create content that creates relationships. How do I receive glowing reviews and interactions like that? Here we go. Create content that creates a relationship. Went the wrong way. No, I didn't. Here we go. And we already talked a little bit about that. Who you are, what you do, and addressing directly to the consumer. You got to speak to the consumer. The consumer matters, not your personal beliefs and feelings. You got to create content that relates to the consumer, not your preconceived ideas that or you're not telling the funeral or the consumer how you want them to think. You're creating content that aligns with the values that you have that address their values. Start a dialogue with your posts. So example, this is Mountain View Funeral Home and Cemetery. It's a video. We're looking for some volunteers to help tomorrow night at 5:30. Thank you again from the bottom of our hearts for making this drive so successful. They did a clothing drive clothing drive and like soaps and a drive for, this was for homeless people around the holidays, right? Or was this for back to school?
This was for, yes, I do believe it was for a homeless campaign and just helping the needy in general, if I understand correctly.
Awesome. All right. So it creates a dialogue, creates value, how they're giving back to the community. And not only are they giving back to the community, they're allowing people to be involved in it. 197 views on that video in less than 24 hours, 14 comments, 12 likes. The value of that is massive. Think about that. Think of the good exposure and the well-being, and then people commenting and sharing and getting people in the community involved and volunteering through your funeral home. Super, super powerful. Create content that creates relationships. That's the theme of these next few things. Ask a question that opens up comments and prompts your audience to respond. Pray Funeral Home below nails it with this CTA, which is call to action with their heartfelt videos. Our team wouldn't be the same without Joe Sr. Help us show him our appreciation for all that he does by leaving a nice comment below. Or if you have a kind memory of Joe, please share it with us. 21 comments, 555 views on the video. This is literally them setting up a cell phone, hitting record, Joe Jr. having a conversation with Joe Sr. About why they serve, why they're in the funeral profession, what they love about the community. Again, they call it meet the neighbor, meet your neighbor, because everybody that works in their funeral home lives in their community. So it's meet your neighbor. And they do one of these every single month. Where they interview a family or a community member. They interview someone that works at the funeral home. They interview other business owners. It's literally a cell phone on a tripod that costs $10 on Amazon. They record it. They send it to our team. Our team edits it. We clip the ends. We color correct it. We stabilize it. Do all the things that we can do to make it look the best that it can. And then we also are crafting the post and posting it for the funeral home. We're monitoring and managing the conversation and going back and forth with the comments. So we do a lot of the heavy lifting.
We have a question that came in that I think fits perfectly with this. And the question is from Edward Thompson Matthews. He asked, what do you think of live streaming funeral Q&As?
Look, if you are comfortable live streaming, there is massive value. Live streams get 75% more reach and engagement than any other type of content. So video itself gets more engagement. Live streaming gets the best engagement. So live streaming Q&As, yes, you want to make sure that you've got an engaged following first. You got to do some promotion for it. Like, just don't go live and go, hey, by the way, I'm live and we're going to do Q&A, because you got to give people time to think of a question. So we had a funeral director that did this, and we picked a day and time every week that they would go live and do Q&As, and then we would stack the deck. So they would reach out to specific people in the community that could get on the live and ask questions, so there was immediate engagement. And we also prepped them with questions and topics, so that if there weren't a lot of questions, they could talk about something that was valuable that would create more conversation. So 100% love it. Also, I mean, the low-hanging fruit is the live stream services. If you can live stream graveside services, funeral services, memorial services through Facebook, and the family's okay with it, absolutely do it, because it's going to get more eyeballs and it's going to elevate the reach of all of the other content on the page as well. So huge value in going live.
And there's probably funeral directors right now thinking, or just professionals in general, just saying like, well, I don't want to sit down and have conversations and interview someone else in your community. You don't have to. This takes a lot of different forms. We're just saying start and do something. Instead of this, let's just say, instead of interviewing like another business or that owner, just go to that business, filming yourself, or just show a little snippet of you going there and just saying, hey, I visited there, great time. Like, so this comes in lots of different forms of this and delivering this message. It's just being different in the newsfeed because it's a funeral home.
That's right. You got to create the content that the consumer doesn't expect to see from a funeral home, because that's what's going to grab the attention. And also, to that point on the video, I mean, we have a number of our clients that have us come in for a day or two and shoot this type of video content. It's amazing what Eli and Josh and their creative team can capture in a 24 or 48 hour period, hanging out with your team, setting them down, shooting production style video. Is that something you have to do? Absolutely not. Is there value in it? There's tremendous value in it, and it's evergreen content, so it's always going to be relevant. All right, create content again that creates relationships. That's the theme here. Answer every, all, and any comments. If someone leaves a comment that deserves a response, you need to create that dialogue. Here is why. So Justin left a recommendation on our client's page, funeral home in Morgantown, West Virginia. Mentions the funeral director by name. If we just came in and commented as the funeral home with a very generic kind of response, it wouldn't hold the weight because this person mentioned the funeral director personally. It makes way more sense to reach out to Ryan. Our team goes, hey Ryan, hey, this came through. We can go comment on your behalf, but it would be more valuable if you left a comment yourself. We direct him how to do that, and then he can respond, and it creates a dialogue. There's so much value, because the more that there's dialogue, Facebook is showing this recommendation to more people. People that follow your page, people that have engaged with your page, people that follow Justin, so it's a built-in recommendation to his friends and family. So much value in creating that dialogue. And of course, this builds audience. It builds an audience of the community and trust, builds the trust with the community, because it's real. And people will read the recommendations. People absolutely pay attention to recommendations, and they read them. And people have more trust. 97% of people trust recommendations from friends than anything else. So when you create the right content, you can create these recommendations that are extremely valuable. And now your audience is becoming social media advocates for you and spreading your message. So create instant recognition. Be gettable. When people see your social media, they should be able to see you, who you are, what you do, how you do it better than anybody else, your personality. If any of you follow me personally on social media, I'm a pretty open book, but I'm very selective too with what I share. Like, I'm not going to live stream an argument between me and my wife. I'm not that open, but I will live stream with my kids. I'll show you when we go out to eat, what I like, where I like to vacation, what my hobbies are, what my beliefs are. A lot about me. That's social media. Social media allows us to be personable. It allows for connection. That's the whole the specific reason Facebook was created was to build relationship. So we're literally just using the platform for its sole purpose of why it was created, to build relationships. The byproduct of building relationships is more business. The problem and where we get it backwards is where businesses want to use Facebook as a tool to sell versus build a relationship. It absolutely is a sales tool, but it has to be done in the right sequence. That's why 99% of funeral homes suck at social media and they have bad success. It's because you got bad people in your ear telling you how to do it. And you got pre-need companies going, oh, well, we can just use this to sell more pre-need. You absolutely can, but there's got to be a process in place first. You got to have the organic engagement and build the audience before you can start the sales. If you just try to blanket everybody, come out the gate just firing ads, you're just turning people off. No one wants to be sold to. So when people see your social media, they should know who your funeral home is and what your funeral home's about and the personality of your funeral home, your team, you, everyone that comes in and out of your funeral home should be able to tell you something about your funeral home through your content. Think about it. If you're just stacking the deck full of grief and inspirational posts and Bible quotes, what is that doing to educate me on why I should choose your funeral home over somebody else's? So see the next slide for this in action. All right, here we go. With Halloween coming up this weekend, we want to give a fun throwback Thursday from a couple years ago. Brandon went all out as Captain America, and we think he rocked it. What does this have to do with death care? Absolutely nothing. Other than Brandon owns the funeral home. People love Brandon. Brandon likes to have fun. It's a preconceived idea that consumers have that funeral directors aren't real people. They're immune to death. They don't have feelings. They're cold. They're stodgy. Look, I'm not telling you anything that you haven't heard before. And I'm not saying that you are those things. I'm saying, let us help you show that you are not those things, because unless you show it, the consumer can't believe anything other than the stereotype or story they've created in their head. So if they're going to create a story and they're going to talk about you, let's give them the story to tell. Make sense? Cruz Family Funeral Home owner Brandon Cruz does a great job with this, with his social media presence and being in the community. Funeral homes are massively engaged in their community, but we never really talk about it. We don't show how we're engaged. We don't show the conversations. We don't show the things that you're doing. Social is a great way to show those things.
So before we hit this case study, we have a question in from an anonymous attendee that we have on here, according to the Q&A. And the question is, how do you handle a negative comment that is not exactly true and actually exaggerates bad details of the service?
A couple of different ways. One, we have to address it. Number one, there has to be a response. Whether that response is directing the conversation to go offline, whether you don't get in a pissing match back and forth. That's not what I'm saying. Saying we have to address and give attention to the negative comment or negative review. This doesn't happen as often as funeral professionals want to think. Like most funeral professionals think that this is like, oh my gosh, we're engaged on social. We're opening the door for bad things to be said. There's a truth to that. If you are crappy at your job and you have bad business, no marketing is ever going to fix bad business. That's a truth. But addressing that is number one. Trying to get the conversation offline and then showing that you addressed it where other people can see it is valuable. I think, and people are going to be mad, I think that negative comments are a positive thing. I hate it when I go to a business and look and see they have a 5 out of 5 star review. No one's perfect. I don't care who you are. You've pissed somebody off. You've done something wrong. I mean, there's funeral homes out there that think we suck and we're terrible, and they'll be happy to tell you. And that's truth, and that's reality for them, and perspective is reality. So I'm okay with a 4.5 star review or a 4-star review. Like, there's value in that. Negative comments give you the opportunity to fix the situation and show everybody else that sees that you care. So if it's exaggerating the truth, look, people are going to be able to go through and read positive comment. And if there's a negative comment that is so far removed and being polar opposite of the 100 positive comments, people are going to be able to read right through that and know that hurt people. We have a really high BS meter. But one, it's addressed. Two, we have a process of evaluating how it should be handled. We walk the funeral home through that. And then we allow the funeral home to make the decision on how we address it and what we say. We give a recommendation of like, hey, here's how we've handled this before and it was valuable. And, here's how we get this conversation to go to phone and offline. And, we've even been successful of getting the conversation offline and getting someone to actually go back and remove that negative review. And then there's some bogus things, right? Like Facebook has a really good process built in where we can report spammy comments and negative comments to actually get them removed if we can prove that they're false.
And again, like this is just like another side of it. Yeah, this is marketing. We're talking about marketing dealing with comments, but we're also talking about alleviating some of the headaches that you may have. You don't have to constantly be worried that you're online and you may have this time bomb and you're not being able to address it. We're going to be the first ones to field it. And working with you, we're now having how to handle it. That reaches out to you immediately, or we go through our own process. And also this is PR on the other side that we're doing. So we're doing marketing and PR and I guess customer service as well too for your community. So yeah, we're a marketing agency, but it's a lot more encompassing this all in one thing.
That's right. And I want to address the reply. The family went to the gravesite and was shocked to see there was a burial vault showing. I love this. I would love that a family would say that, like, that they would comment that they didn't like the burial vault showing, because it gives you an opportunity, one, to explain what the burial vault is, because the majority of people that read that aren't going to have a clue. And that the burial vault, there's value in that burial vault being swung and being visible because of the personalization around that vault. And it gives you an opportunity because maybe not every funeral home in your area swings a burial vault. So there's value in that graveside presentation. So this presents a great opportunity. Like Hollywood does everything wrong. Hollywood, it's not going to always be sunny. There's going to be a tent. Most Hollywood movies don't show a tent. They just show the graveside with a lowering device, and it looks really crappy. So when you can create an image of a beautiful graveside service, but also the reality that it may be snowing, it may be raining, it may be muddy, like, it gives you an opportunity to educate and have a conversation. Like there's value in that. All right, incoming case study. All right, here we go. We're going to show you a case study. This is with Bolin Durkis Funeral Home. It's a local funeral home to where we're at in Zanesville. Population of Zanesville and then the surrounding marketable areas for this funeral home is between 30 and 35,000. There's it's a massively competitive market space. There are 5 other funeral homes. So 6 funeral homes serving a community of 30 to 35,000 people. The objective for the campaign was to run a 45-day campaign. It was brand awareness. We wanted website traffic from Facebook ads. And then the funeral home had prior commitments to a commercial spot. So we leveraged that in conjunction with the campaign that we were running on Facebook with slightly different creative, because creative for Facebook isn't always going to work well in television because they're digested in different ways. It's conversational inside of Facebook. It's not conversational inside of a television commercial. So we put $300 budget behind the paid campaign. I'm going to show you what the creative was around this, and I'll break down kind of how this worked. But the paid results strictly. So this is just what came from the $285 that were spent inside of Facebook. Now, it was thousands of dollars that were spent on the television commercial, and we asked for the data around the television commercial from the television station. They don't have the data. They don't know how many people saw it. They know how many times it ran, but they can't give you how many minutes were actual eyeballs watched the content. They can't tell you who it was. There's a lot of data we can pull out of this and how we targeted it. So we know that $285 was spent on the right consumer. So 44,700 minutes spent viewing in a 45-day period around this creative. And again, I'm going to show you the creative in a second. Think about that. 4,700 minutes. I don't know how many hours that is, but that's a lot of hours spent with your content, spent with your funeral home in front of somebody. 93,000 impressions. We reach over 16,000 people. So we reach over half of the people in the community. And if we broke that down, that 30 to 35,000 people, that's not all people over the age of 45. It's a much smaller audience. That's the actual targetable audience. So we reached most of the people in the community that were over the age of 45 that made sense to target, because that's how we were targeting this campaign. 15,000 people engaged with the post. There were over 1,700 clicks back to the funeral home website, which took them to a landing page that created some urgency and deeper conversation. There was action that could be taken on that landing page. So over 1,700 people came back to the funeral home website in that 45-day period for something other than an obituary, for something of value. The page performance. So the overall performance of other content that we were putting out on Facebook in that time period, the engagement around that paid campaign increased the engagement around the Facebook page 41%. So there were 9,000 total engagements in that 45-day period on the Facebook page around the other content that was being created, the other organic content. 522 comments, on average 2,800 impressions a day from 2,185 people were engaging with the funeral home Facebook page each day. I mean, what would you pay to get a selected few people in your community to engage with your content every day? Do you think that that builds awareness? Let's go back to that original funnel at the beginning of the presentation. Awareness, action, purchase, loyalty. It's a revolving cycle. Do you think people spending 4,700 minutes with your content and 15,000 people engaging with your content, 2,000 people a day engaging and seeing your content, do you think that that builds awareness? Do you think that those 9,000 engagements build action? Do you feel that that's going to build purchase? 24 at need. This doesn't include the pre-need conversations that came out of this campaign. This doesn't include the pre-need leads that came from this campaign or the pre-needs of people that passed during this time period. 24 at need real-time calls during the 45-day period, which is a higher average than the funeral home has in a typical 45-day period. Awareness, action, purchase, loyalty. Now I want to show you the campaign. So the funeral home reached out to us. I'll give you the, and we're wrapping up with this. So if you got to go, just hang out for a few more minutes. And please ask your question. I will answer every single one and stay on as long as I need to address your questions. The funeral home reached out and said, look, I've got a commercial commitment that I've prepaid for with the television station. But I don't want them really to come in and shoot the commercial, because I don't want something that's the normal, boring, kind of everyday funeral home commercial. I know that you guys don't necessarily do a lot of commercial work, which is not true. We absolutely do. We shoot a lot of video for clients, and a lot of commercials for clients for production. But we let them know that and said, yeah, we can come in, but here's the deal. Like, we're not going to create just a typical boring, get a couple old people, throw them in an arrangement conference, show a slat wall and you making arrangements. Like that's, you know, if that's what you're looking for, that is not what we're going to create. He said, no, I want something different that nobody else is going to think of. So this screen grab right here of scene 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the actual hand drawings from our animator storyboard. This is what we use to pitch the client. And then we put it together. We visualized, sorry, let me go back.
Yeah, so like we came up with a script. Basically, we talked to the client, we know them well, but we still had a sit down discovery session with them, really talking to what are the goals, what do we want to achieve out of this? And it was a personalized yet very approachable commercial showcasing just our client being a normal person, but also more importantly, being a funeral director. And then that's when we were sitting down and speaking to him and infusing what he likes, what he's known for outside the funeral home, or maybe people may not know about this outside the funeral home, infusing that personality into the commercial and then writing a script for it. And then going to our animator and doing some storyboard stuff, take it to the pitch back to our clients. Hey, we all on the same page. We like this direction. And of course they were, but you know, that's why we do this, to make sure we're getting it right, they're getting it right, and we're all aligned.
That's exactly right. And I want to throw out there too, like you see that we put showcase the goal of the campaign was to showcase the other side of being a funeral director in a humorous yet appropriate light way. Humor is okay. Like we get twisted up in our feelings and think that, you know, we can't be funny, we can't add lightness, and consumer responds very, very well to tasteful humor from a funeral home. And we'll show you that. And the time difference and like this supports the acceptedness of these numbers, support the acceptedness of what is the deal? Why can we not go backwards here? These numbers support the value of the campaign performing well, and they're being accepted in this. And actually, I got a call from the funeral home about, we'd been running the paid campaign for about 4 days on Facebook. And the funeral director called me late into the evening. And look, typically when a client calls you at 9 o'clock at night, it's usually not because they're happy about something, right? So immediately I was like, oh no, what's going on? What's the issue? Did something happen at the funeral home we're going to need to address on social? What's the deal? And I answered the phone. The funeral director said, different. I said, what? And he goes, I got one word for you, different. I said, I'm sorry, Ty, what are you talking about? And he said, that's what I keep hearing about our commercial. People love it. He's like, the ads that we're running on Facebook, we have never gotten feedback on any type of marketing like we have on this, and it's all positive. He's like, look, I don't know. I told you guys up front, I wasn't really sure how this was going to work. We've never done anything humorous that's so far removed from what most funeral homes do. I was really worried, but I trusted you. And he's like, and you guys nailed it. It's different. People love it. The feedback is insane. It's more feedback than we've ever gotten. And this proves it. The numbers prove the value. So we visualized and executed on long-term hobbies the funeral director had where they were relatable with the target audience. Again, you got to look at this and what you're creating in perspective of who's actually going to be engaging with it and digesting, who's going to see it. Who are we going after? It's somebody over the age of 55. That's the most profitable demographic for you to engage with. So we got to create content that's going to be relatable to them as well. And then we wanted to show being a funeral director in the community is essentially a walking billboard. We incorporated local businesses and cues as much as we could. So different things in the community that we could show and that would be recognizable. We used donuts in this. The homegrown donut shop, Donald's Donuts, is completely recognizable. They shared this commercial as well on Facebook because it featured their core product, donuts, that everybody knows. So there were a lot of just things that were subbed in here that were relatable to the community, relatable to the audience, and relatable to the funeral director. And so I'm going to show you the commercial that we created. And again, this was created specifically for Facebook. The funeral home was able to repurpose this and run it as a television commercial. The way that we shot it, we had to edit it a little bit to make that happen. But the dominant value of this came through how we were able to spend money and promote it on Facebook. And it's evergreen. Like we can continually run this for a long time. So I'm going to reshare my screen because I clicked the wrong thing. I need to be able to share the audio for you to hear this.
And so just when you're watching this, just think about it. We're saturating the market in a good way on traditional means and then also on digital means as well too. So right. If maybe they're not seeing it on the 6 o'clock news or 7 o'clock news, that 30-second spot, well, luckily we have this as well too on a Facebook campaign to go ahead and hit them with this longer extended edition as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's 25% of your audience that isn't active daily on Facebook. So, you know, it's not a bad thing to be able to reach them other ways. 100%. All right, we're going to show the 30-second video. Hopefully the audio is good.
This is Ty Durkis, funeral director for 34 years and the owner of Bolin Durkis Funeral Home. Besides being a funeral director, Ty is a Bob Ross-inspired speed painter. Great job, Ty. Ty's other masterpiece? Tomatoes so good that they whisper.
Great hat, Ty.
This gentleman is many things, a father, husband, and community member, but a boring, plain Jane glazed-o-eater. He is not.
I've been honored to serve this community for over 34 years, and our family will continue to serve you well in the future.
Okay, so not a traditional funeral home commercial, not something that you would expect to see from a funeral home. Insanely valuable. The amount of comments and campaign questions that this started. Again, 24 at-need calls generated in the 45-day period that this campaign ran via Facebook. And look, the spend was only $285. Like, in what reality, I mean, what would you give to have people in your community spend almost 5,000 minutes with your content? The exchange of $285 for, I mean, I'm going to figure that out real quick. Sorry. I'm just curious of how many hours that is. And I can't do math in my head because, well.
And just be thinking to yourself right now, like, a lot of people are probably still like, let's show our great facilities. And I'm not saying you don't do that stuff. We're not saying don't do that, but what would you rather interact with?
That's right. What are you as a
something that's
consumer
humorous,
doing?
that catches your eye, that you like. And again, think about you. What type of insurance commercials do you watch and ingest? I bet they're humor based.
That's right. All right. So 4,700 minutes is 195 hours of time spent with that piece of content. So 195 hours on just one piece of content that was spent in a 45-day period with the brand. Do you think that creates loyalty? Do you think that creates awareness? Do you think 15,000 people engaging with the post creates action? So again, look at the marketing funnel that builds a relationship. Awareness. We have the awareness, 195 hours of time spent with that piece of content. Action, 15,000 engagements around that piece of content from 16,000 different people. Insane. Purchase, 24 at-need calls. So there was awareness, there was action, there was purpose. And then the comments and the recommendations that came around this piece of content, that creates the loyalty. You got it all, the relationship marketing funnel in one piece of content.
And before we wrap up here, we have an awesome question coming from Anne. She says, we donate tangible items to charitable events. I'd like to say, hey, go to X event and look for our item and show a picture of it to show that we give back to the community, but it feels so showsy. Should I be showing it?
Yes. Anne, how are you? Good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Appreciate you being on here. Yes, and show those things. Here's why. It's showcasing what you do in the community. People support generosity, and it's not bad. So to give you a great example, Bolin submits a cake every year and a cake auction that happens in their community. We absolutely feature the cake that's going to be auctioned off. We feature the prize that's going along with it for the auction. And then we typically feature the person in the community that made the cake. So the funeral home highlights them as well. They're always themed. There's a story behind why they created the cake and themed it the way that they did. Creates a lot of engagement. That is insanely valuable. It's not showsy. It's not boastful because it's real time. It's to the heart of who the funeral home is, and you're supporting an organization. That generosity is valued by people in your community. They want to see what you're giving back. Look, I mean, there's preconceived ideas that funeral homes have tons of money. So your ability to showcase how you're giving back and your generosity with those things is extremely, extremely valuable.
Yeah, there's a humility and a generosity with funeral directors that is like very respectable, but there is a major difference between tweeting out how much you're putting in the offering plate every Sunday and showing something that you're doing to help the community. That in order for this, like for you to help your community the best, you need to get people there who can bid on said items and stuff like that. So that's right. I mean, the more that by doing that, you're helping your community, and that is an awesome thing.
Good analogy there. Awesome. Okay. I mean, that wraps up what we've got. Look, here's the deal. If we've provided any value to you whatsoever, one of the things that really shocks me is, I have conversations every single day with funeral professionals that say, oh my gosh, like we love your content. We watch all your webinars. We follow everything that you've done for the last 3 years. what are you waiting on? Like, it's only valuable that you watch every single piece of the content that we create and put out if you actually take action on it. If you actually put it into action. And most funeral home owners aren't marketing people. So and most don't have people on staff that their only job position is marketing. To do this correctly and doing it effectively, you need somebody doing it 40 hours a week. So for the price of a fourth of what you would pay somebody full-time to work in your funeral home, you get an entire social media team with us. You're getting everybody that is specific content writers, graphic designers, copywriters, communication people, ads people, video people. You're getting the whole gamut for a fourth of the cost of a full-time employee. So look, if you've found this valuable, if we've piqued your interest, if you know that you're getting social media content from somewhere else and it's not this type of content, it's not organic, you're not seeing value from it, you're not actually generating more business from it, it's not working for you. It's content for the sake of content, and you're missing the boat. There will be a funeral home in every single market in the United States that will own the social media landscape. Period. It will happen. Shouldn't it be your funeral home? Like, there absolutely will be a single funeral home in every market that owns the social media landscape. Is it going to be you, or is it going to be somebody else? And don't you think partnered up with the people that are creating the content to have the real value, that have the data to prove that it works, would be the right company to hang out with? I mean, there's a difference in disrupt. And gosh, the relationship matters. It's why we do what we do. We're building a strategy around you creating relationships that can then be leveraged for more call volume. It's that simple, but it's complicated. It's not easy to create organic content 30 days a month, 12 months out of the year, and keep content fresh and relevant in real time. It takes intentionality. It takes a strategy. It takes goals. It takes a plan. It's not something that's going to magically happen overnight. It takes time. Relationships are not immediate. Takes multiple engagements. So if you've got questions, please email. No, that's not a typo. Our website is disruptmedia.co. Our email address is r.co. If you use .com, you won't get us, period. So shoot me an email. Go to our website. You can schedule a demo. You can see my calendar. You can click the schedule demo button. You'll get an email with a link to my calendar where you can pick a time and day that work for you to us to connect one-on-one on a screen share like this and walk you through our process and the nitty-gritty of what we're going to do. But at the heart of what we do, we're helping you build relationships that equal more call volume, period. Anybody else that tells you that they're going to be able to drive sales through social media and doesn't have a content strategy or how to do it is blowing smoke. I'm tired of beating around the bush. And to all our competitors, thank you for being on. Please regurgitate it word for word as I said it, because that's the only way that it's going to provide value to the people you're regurgitating it to. Please do that. All right. Appreciate you all. Last chance to ask a question. Look, if you thought this sucked and you got no value, it's your fault. Ask a question and we can give you some value. David, thank you. Nola, thank you. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for being on. This was recorded. This will be emailed out to all that register. So again, to our competitors that missed something and didn't take notes, you'll get this so you can go back through it. So thank you, everyone. Appreciate you. Look, let's do better. Let's do social media the right way. Collectively, we can change the perception the consumer has of the death care space by building relationships and doing things the right way. Okay. Peace out. I'm going to stop the share and we're out of here. Thank you, everyone.